So a little bit of background maybe. So I've known Max for a long time. First time seen from in a long while. We used to teach ground school at Babcock, I think it was back in the day. And the only reason I was there because in 2008 I finished my comm and I finished exactly at the right time because Lehman Brothers went down and the dollar tanked and no one was flying. So we had to try and reinvent ourselves from the beginning. We became ground school people, so there was not a whole bunch of instruction happening. So, all right, yeah. Where's the pointer?
Should change this.
You know, you can just, I'll just tell you to change it, don't worry. It's not a really big thing. Okay, there we go. So that's a beginning shot there. Now's the time. I'll tell you why I say now's the time, but a bit of background on that shot. That's a Mirage F1AZ. I think it's flown by Johan Mini. And I took that photo before cell phones and cell phone cameras. We had little, what we call a mick and drick, a little plastic camera. And I had my boys' hire blazer from school on, and I was sitting in a Boeing 707. So how did I get there? 300 knots and 30,000 feet over the Northern Cape. And there we are, 20 boys all together, watching this happen in front of us. So I think my beginning of the story is that many of us sitting over here, we love flying. How many of you guys love flying? How many of you actually fly something? Who flies model airplanes? Anybody? Okay, that's a gentle lady. That's the Harvard of model airplanes. Everyone who ever flew airplanes, they began there. She talked about Sullenberger. The reason why he got that right is because he was a glider pilot.
Yeah.
It's a glider pilot. So he managed to land the impossible landing. In fact, they couldn't do it. They did try. But I fly helicopters. They also glide, but like a set of keys. Just throw the keys wherever it's going. That's where you're going. Just a joke. Okay, so my background from school, I had a really, really amazing, you don't get to choose where you go to school, so I was sent to a school, Pretoria Boys High, and it just so happened to be in 1993 they had an aeronautical society that started. And it was an activity after school. Guys did rugby, water polo, hockey, all those kind of things. We were all forced to do those, but there was nothing you really wanted to do. And I wasn't into chess. And suddenly this thing arrived as the Aeronautical Society. So what did we do? We went to this thing. They used to tell us all, John Ealsley, he was the master. He's just retired now, 37 years in school. And he would just have people like me, where I am now, come and talk to you about flying. And it was incredible. We had lots of quizzes about aircraft and things like that. And I think I won most of those in arguments. But we had an amazing opportunity. I had the silver spoon. We were able to do stuff like that. We went for, in my school career, 30 plus flips in the Air Force, in everything from Bosborgs, Harvards. We didn't get jets, fast jets at the time, but we had Oryxes, we went in Boeing 707s. And there was an amazing man there who helped us, Richard Lord. And he was actually a mentor to many. And this man, he couldn't get into the Air Force when he was young because he was English. So in those days you had to be Afrikaans. So what did he do? Naturally, he went overseas. He had a British passport, and he joined up at the Royal Navy. And he started to fly in the Fleet Air Arm. He flew Venoms, Sea Victims. He flew F4 Phantoms, and he flew Buccaneers off of Ark Royal. An amazing man. And the funny thing about him is in 1967, which is years before most of us were born, there was a problem in Vietnam, and the US Air Force couldn't shoot down fighters for 2 years. They battled because the F4 Phantom, it basically turned like a manhole cover, and they were up against enemy fighters who were much lighter, could turn inside of the Phantom. And the Phantom was shot down by gunfire. It was unusual. They had missiles, and they couldn't shoot them down. And they eventually approached the royal establishment in England. They asked them to help them with fighter air combat maneuver training. And the manual was actually written by a South African, Sailor Madan. And that manual went on to jet flying, and the person who they asked to go and teach was none other than Dick Lord. And he was the man that actually began Top Gun at Miramar. He actually wrote the manual for Top Gun. Within 2 years, they hadn't shot anyone down. Within 2 weeks of his first student coming out of the school, where he taught them how to fly an F4 Phantom, they were able to have an aerial victory. And that was history. And so we can go to the next slide. So can you make it play? Make it play. So this is me. This is not actually me. This is just what we did. I had an opportunity to fly for Mission Impossible for Tom Cruise. And we did this stunt. We did about 16 of them. You'll only see it in the movie in 2025. It was the first time it's ever been captured on film. We called it the burning parachute. So you'll see there is a black powder charge. It starts to burn, and the parachute is now dead, and he has another 2 parachutes. So that's Alan Hewitt doing it. He's a member of the Red Devils, which is the aerial display team for the British Army. And he produced the stunt that we did successfully on film. Only difference is I actually did it with Tom Cruise. I got to get into that by sheer fluke. It's nothing to do with any merit. Just had a friend who was involved with the film, and they needed another pilot on a squirrel. I went in. I just so happened to have a parachute endorsement in my logbook, and that's what we started to do. So that's coming out. Everything you see in the film is a complete lie. Everything is stitched together to make it look like something it's not. So the sequence over there is a Stearman aeroplane that's on fire, and he jumps out, he falls out of the aeroplane, and his parachute's on fire, and then it burns. So you'll see that later in the movie. Next one. Okay, there we go. There's me and the man. He is quite short. He's 4.5 inches too short to be a Navy pilot. Actually, legally, he can't actually be a Navy pilot. Lovely guy to work with. He flies himself, flies fixed wing and helicopters. We were 9 or 10 helicopter pilots that worked with him. I provided pilots to him also because he needed someone to babysit him. He had a November registered helicopter, so he needed some help here to get around our airspace. So we did that. Okay, next. All right, that's me, 13 years old in a Tiger Moth at Rand Airport. 13, 14, somewhere there. First time in an open cockpit biplane. I just remember that the tail was really light because I'd never flown anything in my life. And suddenly I was going like this because I thought that's how you fly it, and the airplane was going like this, and everyone getting sick. But that's where it started. I had some opportunities to fly. There's the magnetos behind me. There's where you switch it on. And that one didn't have brakes, Cole. And it didn't have electronic ignition. It was authentic. Just say, it was authentic. Yeah. Okay, next. All right, there's a landing in Lesotho that's busy doing the filming. So when we actually did the movie, there's a lot of health and safety, and it looks really impressive, but it takes hours because everyone has to go through the entire motion on the ground to make sure everything is safe. So my role over there was catching the burning parachute, the pieces of parachute that come down, because it goes into a national park, which is the Royal Natal National Park. You don't want to set fire to that. So I had to go and fetch the parachute. The guy who flew with me there is not that guy. I just met him on the hill. But the guy who flew with me there, his father was actually a stunt double for Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So quite like interesting people you work with. But I landed over there. We were looking for the parachute now in the middle of nowhere on a really steep hill in the middle of the berg, 10,000 feet in the sky. Put the skids down, and there's a guy that arrives on a horse without a saddle. And he'd never seen a helicopter before. So I just said, we took a photo. So that was that one there. A little bit of, quite interesting. That's a squirrel, by the way. That's what we use for the movie. Next one. Okay, that's another baseline. That's a Black Hawk helicopter in the background. Belongs to Mark Jackson in Nelspruit. They use it for firefighting. That we used for a prop in the movie. And they actually painted it green. It's a type of paint you paint onto it, and it's aviation approved. And it doesn't wash off. It only washes off when you put a pressure washer and you put an agent inside that actually cuts the paint off. But we painted that for the movie, and that's Egmont van Dijk. He's one of the pilots for Leading Edge. So they do aerial firefighting. Worked with him for years. And we were at school together. When we were at Boys High, he had a hang glider. We find any kind of hill we could find to throw ourselves off, and we did. Without any licensing or anything, we managed to get airborne successfully with a couple of dings and things along the way. But we both went into a career flying airplanes and helicopters. He flies 737s as well as a captain. And we're currently flying on firefighting. Interesting, they used that exact same type of paint on one of the Bond movies. They painted the entire 747 with that paint. That helicopter there cost R1.5 million to paint with that paint. Takes 8 hours to paint it. It's quick. That's what they charge. But anyway, funny story. Next one. All right, that's my last slide over there. So also fly the caravan. It's a bakkie with wings. Is skulpat RC flaps if you need. So that's most people start on that kind of thing. Currently, my background at the moment, we landed the R66 over here. We operate about 20 aircraft, helicopters, And we guarantee that your petrol comes to Gauteng. So we look after essential infrastructure, which is a pipeline that runs from Durban to Joburg. It's about 3,500 kilometers of pipeline with branches out like a tree. We look after that, and if you don't look after that, you arrive at BP and there's nothing there. So we've got pilots to do that, 20 aircraft, 36 pilots. In my time, Bidvest Protocol, where I'm currently employed, I've been there about 12, 13 years. We've produced 20 helicopter pilots. And that's pilots that came with PPLs, and they were struggling and they're trying to get it in, and we were able to push them in the right direction. What Megan was saying, there really isn't the best school, they're just schools. But the point of the presentation this morning is that now is the best time in history for anyone to learn to fly. You have no idea. There's a 9,000 pilot shortage within the next 5 years in America, and that's in the rotor wing department alone. American Airlines have already parked 50 aircraft. 50 brand new 737s that are standing over there not using it because they don't have pilots, they don't have air crew stewards, they don't have maintenance engineers. So there's never been a greater opportunity than starting to fly now. If you go from zero to a helicopter commercial license, 1.7 million rand, it's a lot of money you might think. In British money, it's 80,000 pounds, which is not a lot of money. We've got a lot of students that come from overseas. They come and learn here because it's about half the price to learn in South Africa in comparison to the UK and in Europe, our closest competition really. So that's the thing. If you've got parents that are rich, rob them now. Make a plan, but make sure you fly. When we were in school, everyone said to us, go and get yourself a BCom first and then start flying later. Some of us went Air Force and then you got your wings and then you learned and you did some kind of tertiary qualification. But what we're looking at in terms of trades, because you could look at aviation as a trade really, trades are suffering. There are no people doing trades at the moment. There's very few. And that's actually where the opportunities are. So the tables have turned. Nowadays it's more a case of actually get your flying license now that you've got something to fall back on, because within the next 5 years it's going to be a different thing. I think Carl will tell you how long would it take you to get to a 747 right seat in the old days? What, 10 years?
No, for me it was about 3 years.
No, he's a gift to aviation, God's gift.
12 years from starting to fly to becoming a co-pilot.
12 years, okay, and in the commuter market in America now it's 2.5 years from scratch. So it's different aircraft we fly now as well. But
the thing is, there we had to fly the airplane. Now, if you're good enough, if you
press
can
buttons.
type 40 words a minute.
Yeah. So that's what I do. Airplane and helicopter pilot, but mostly helicopters. If you want to sit around do nothing, you can fly airplanes. Otherwise, you want to stick and rudder to helicopters. Okay, Cole? Real pilots. Anyway, that's me, guys. And any questions? Except Ethan.
What is the yearly income for a helicopter pilot that's doing charter flights?
What's your yearly income right now?
Sorry?
What's your yearly income right now? Nothing. Are you surviving? Yeah, okay. It's variable. To give you an idea of the background with that as well, you'll earn a lot more in the airlines, going up to that place as a captain. But in helicopters, it's more a charter and it's more an applied skill market. So there's many different things you can do. So with the aircraft, we do security, we do film work, we do underslung, we do all those kind of things that a helicopter is practical for. So it depends on what your skill level is and also network. So a forum like this is very important because like you'll see with Megan also on what she showed you over there, her partners in her business, that's exactly the same as you'll be as a pilot. You'll have to start marketing yourself in order to get to that point. It's not really something that you can answer accurately at the moment because it changes. And I think for helicopter flying, the more experienced pilots are earning a lot more than they used to because most of the Vietnam era pilots have retired. So there are literally no pilots. To give you an idea, I've got one lady pilot who's flown for us for about a year. She's about 1,200 hours. She's already made a right seat of Bell 412 and she's flying in Antarctica. So that's a multi-crew aircraft. So it's not a single pilot. The stuff I fly is more single pilot. But those opportunities have opened up because there simply are not crew available to do that. And it's not necessarily about what you know, it's about who you know and how you apply that skill.
Do you have a cadet program or something that kids can get involved with to get to that level, or how would they go about?
You're sitting in it right now. This is the program. So no, there's no one that's going to pay the bill for you. You're going to have to be, you're going to have to market yourself. Most of us, like Megan will say again, I'm sorry I'm using you so much as an example, it's most of you, you'll have to reinvent yourself some way in order to make it. When I finished 2 comms, 300 hours, 2008, there was no jobs, there's nothing available. I went and I started refueling aeroplanes at Grand Central. I still know the refueling crew by name. So started doing that, got an opportunity on a caravan as a co-pilot, and then went from there to vehicle tracking. And while I did that, in order to pay the bill, I worked at the same place she worked at, and we started to train people in aviation. I think I read the stuff more than I taught, to be honest. But it works, they got through. Okay, so yeah. So yeah, so there's 100 ways to do it. You know, if you've got to flip pizzas to do it, flip pizzas. It's worth it. It's worth it. Any other question?
You're underselling the requirement for pilots. The FAA reckons that 600,000 pilots are required in the world by 2030.
Yeah.
That's 6 years down the line.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
And if they're already parking airplanes without crew, you must understand it's. I think there's a between American and who's there, United. There's a price war at the moment. They're actually scoring crew just by giving them better fringe benefits and better salary. So guys are swapping seats quite a lot.
Just to build onto what Carl's saying and what George is saying, with those studies and those research, Oliver Wyman, who does statistics globally, are anticipating that Africa is going to be short of 8,000 pilots by the end of next year. And the thing is that shortage will continue because a lot of our pilots move out into the Middle East. They move out towards the likes of Cathay, Emirates, Etihad. So there's always going to be work moving through Africa. So exactly what George is saying, the time literally is now.
Yeah, just give some background on that too. I've got an open hand with pilots, so I try not to bond people for ratings and things like that. I'd rather work with them and let them come back again. We've got some of our crew that have gone out recently. Like I said, that young lady, Martinette, she's gone out into a place that I'm not even qualified to fly there. But she's in that position and she said yes to it and she's able to be trained that way. So when she does come back from that, I'm still able to employ her again on a freelance basis. So that kind of answers both those questions, like how are you going to make it fit? You have to be creative, but there's definitely opportunity. Definitely.
And as far as drones, you don't see that as a threat to taking jobs away from pilots?
We don't like to swear in open areas like that. No, I'm just kidding. So one of our parent company, Bidvest, also owns UDS, which is the biggest operator of drones in the southern hemisphere. I think they've got over 250 crews of drones. A drone market is very different. It isn't an opportunity into aviation, kind of links onto radio flying. And we've actually had some of those operators that actually come through the aircraft as crew and become pilots. So it's definitely a way to step in. And there is a massive shortage of qualified commercial drone pilots, specifically BVLOS, beyond visual line of sight pilots. If you've got that, you can make some good money. And with the way it is in South Africa, or in Africa, or in most developing markets, if you don't glue something to the ground with some very strong glue, it goes missing. So in that market, it's usually to do with securing assets or securing essential infrastructure. And that's where helicopters, drones, and fixed wing, I think Cape Town, there's something about a new plane that's flying there with a insult. That kind of equipment is necessary, you need that. This aircraft we've got is an R66 outside, it's one that we bought. We produced an aircraft called an R66 Turbine Sentinel. So it's an aircraft that's got as much, the telemetry on board the aircraft is worth more than the aircraft. And it's able to pick up a human-sized target from about 13 kilometers and accurately track it. And we use that specifically for securing infrastructure for our clients. Without that kind of equipment, you're dead in the water. The people who make that equipment are in Centurion. The best in-class sensor in the world comes from Centurion. And everything's made from the bolt up from Hensoldt, which is our old Denel partnership. So that equipment is military-grade equipment, and it's actually made over here. It's made alongside nuclear submarine periscopes. So, you know, in our country, we've got an incredible ability to make stuff that no one can make, and to make it to a market level that's military grade. It's essential equipment.